It was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Can't be like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have
Corrupt
sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
My name is Naledi. I am a gender studies honours student here at UCT.
Mekimoyo, Justice and Transformation student, activist.
I'm Abutla Rakwasa. I'm doing my honours in social policy and management. I'm from Botswana.
I'm Katie and I did film and philosophy.
Just looking at where we're at, I think the conversation about South Africa always starts with contextualizing our economic stability in relation to the rest of Africa. And when I think about myself, it's always, oh, we're in a functioning economy. You know, I could go from secondary school straight into varsity. You have government-funded degrees. And I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to thinking about my future, is that there is a responsibility to the nation, because, I mean, my degree would have been, say, funded by the national funding for students. So why was I funded by the government? I think it was for me to be able to contribute to nation building. So when I think about the state of South Africa, I own the state and I own the responsibility to be able to contribute back to what was given to me. I mean, like, a citizen is a product of where they are. So when I think about staying or leaving, I'm always thinking about, what does it mean to be a citizen and what responsibility do I have? Because the economy falling apart isn't something that is outside of me, because the economy thriving is for me to be able to benefit from it. So I definitely, when I think about South Africa, I think of myself as some kind of patriotic citizen, and what responsibilities do I have there?
Also, like, beyond that, it's very important to understand that nobody has ever solved a problem by living. You have to, like, face your problems head on and solve them. So I totally agree with the idea of, no, you have a responsibility, a duty, a civic duty, more so that the state has contributed towards you being who you are now. So therefore now the expectation is that we need you to take us somewhere, as South Africa or in any other African country. So we have, like, a huge responsibility as graduates or as, you know, young people to be there for our countries when they need them.
For instance, I want to go overseas and study and further and to do masters and stuff like that. And I always think of, how can going there help me come back? I never think, oh, maybe I'm going to settle there. I never think about that. I want to come back. I'm always coming back. So even by me leaving or me going somewhere, it is always to try and build my knowledge, as you said. Sure. Exactly, you know, build my knowledge, create something so that I can come back and be like, okay, this is how I can help.
So whilst you guys are talking, I was just, like, wondering, what if you were to be, like, to act outside of that patriotic kind of mindset and, like, leave South Africa, like, what would be the motivation for doing that? Like, what's the deficit here that, like, causes people to, like, even have an attitude of that staying would be a duty in some way rather than a natural, like, joyful choice, if that makes sense?
So I have a quick, like, off the brain. Money.
Yeah.
So let's talk about money. Let's look at the National Research Fund. It's funding postgraduate students. We're at UCT. Do you know that the NRF, and I'm not calling anyone out, was only able to fund 150 students. And the rest of the students in this university were subsidized by the university. So if I wanted to further my master's, where was I going to get the money to study?
No way.
And you have Oxford offering master's degrees in development studies and African studies, offering fully funded stipends. We have friends who are able to buy cars from the stipends that they receive. So they're able to build their homes, build their futures, because they left the country. So if you stay, what are you staying for?
Going back on all of that is that the thing is, my reason for going is not so much, oh, you know, sure, I'm like, oh, good education. But I'm just tired. Like, I'm when I say that university, UCT has tired me out of the 4 years that I've been here, I am sick. I'm actually sick. And I cannot continue like this as much as
What makes you sick? Like,
I love my...
Why are you tired?
So I love my department, for instance.
Okay.
Love gender studies department. I want to come back. The UCT, this is brilliant. I think that we have one of the best in Africa, in the world. Completely. but the institution itself, this coming from, I can't even describe how, just this everyday feeling when you're coming into spaces, and it's less so now that I'm more focused on honors, but there's just tiredness because you're in this UCT space where student protest happened, but nothing happened. And I sit there thinking, what was the point of the trauma?
Yeah.
What was the point of the trauma?
Yeah.
And now I'm just like, well, I'm tired, I'll come back soon.
Originally, I'm from the UK.
Oh.
I've lived here for like 12 years now. So whenever I think about leaving, it's a decision about like where to like place myself in the world between those like two homes that I've experienced. And in terms of like the political and economic situation, like and outside of like applying for master's funding and stuff, just like looking for like jobs fresh out of graduating, like my friends in South Africa seem to have an easier time finding work than in the UK. And then like politically, like there's Boris Johnson just got elected and there's Brexit, and I'm like looking at South Africa, which is a country that's at least, okay, there are a lot of people who are trying very hard not to, but there are also a lot of people who are like explicitly talking about change here, and that's actually not something that I like feel is in the air in the UK at all. So I actually feel like I have more hope for South Africa as a country. But then there are obviously like bigger global forces at play that can limit those energies.
Whether the economy is shitty, whether people are doing the most, I feel like I have a duty, like, and in a conviction even, like, and I can't explain it.
When I was thinking about really, what are my ties, and I've been called like a narrow nationalist, and I think of it like, I don't think that's true. I don't think that I have like some kind of like diehard nationalism. But when we think of constructing our desire to leave only in so much as we premise it that we're going to come back, my question is always, you're assuming that there's something to come back to in every instance of leaving. So I had an Uber driver who said to me, I studied in Zimbabwe. I was one of the bright minds. But if you think about, tertiary education, by the time you get to university, is the university to go to, but also what is going to happen. So we think of South Africa and the land conversation today. Let's say, for instance, the EFF had won the general election that we're coming from, and then the land redistribution ended up creating an economic mess. If you were at that time having been accepted at Oxford, would you imagine yourself coming back, and what would you be coming back to? Because I think you create this utopia of you're coming back to a functional South Africa, which is at the basis of, I think, our national identity. We always assume that South Africa is this exceptional state. But look at Zimbabwe. Look at what's happening in all the other countries in Africa. Is there something to come back to when all of the nationals in those countries leave to get an education?
Sure. I agree. But at the same time, I feel it has to do more with an individual. It's a youth thing. You know what I mean? Like, I from Bots.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely going back. There's not much I'm going back for, but I'm definitely going back because it's my personal conviction that I have a duty to, get more from outside to help inside. But, it's very true. We need to understand the premise in which we're living and what is going to happen when we get there, and are we going to have an incentive to even come back at all? Because we see a lot of young Africans going overseas and they never do come back. Whilst in the initial part of it, they were going back, they were going outside of Africa to go and try to, better their skills and all of that, but in the end they don't come back. So it doesn't help in any case. It becomes a cycle of people leaving, nobody coming back to help the situation or whatever.
There's definitely a chance that I would leave if the economy completely crashed, and it's not. Yeah, there's also a chance I would stay, and it would come. I think it would come down to whether I thought, can I turn this around for myself personally, and what contribution am I making to by staying? Because another thing that also plays in for me as a factor sometimes is I also wonder if I'm taking up space in South Africa that I may not be entitled to be taking up because I'm just this white English girl who came here and settled, like there's that to consider as well. So like, yeah, it would very much come down to like on a personal basis, like what can I make of this and can I like function within this, and like, and how great the risks were. And yeah, the contribution thing I think is also really important.
And privilege as well, as you were speaking about, is that I think for the most part, the reason why I can say, oh, you know, I could do my master's overseas is privilege. Yeah. I get the privilege to go and say, hey, listen, I'm going to study here, you know. I happen to have an Irish passport from one of my parents. So great, I get a reduction in fees some places, right?
It might even still be in Europe.
Right, you know, exactly. And so that's the thing, is that it's privilege, as you said, is that you're saying, we have all these ideas of, as you said, you know, work in the grassroots, help out. But for, for the most part, as someone from, you know, major privilege, I can say, that's why I'm going to go and study overseas. That's why I can do this stuff and say how I'm going to give back. But what contribution can I do? Will it be enough? Will it actually work?
For probably her, she does have an option of going back to the UK since she does have a dual citizenship. For me, as a person from Botswana, and I'm only a citizen of Botswana, and I don't have anywhere else to go, that option in itself of going is out of the picture. More so that after that, like, if I could go, there's still so much that I need to do, like apply, prove to them that I can actually, I don't want to put myself into that. I would rather just, you know, stick here. And I do believe with all the problems that our countries do have, I do believe staying for me as a person, as an individual, is an option.
Yeah.
And staying isn't just staying and being there. It's about doing something to make it better for those who've went and probably are going to come back, or just to attract them to come back, essentially.
It's like so impossible for like, not impossible, it's improbable for any of us sat here to like make systemic changes in one blow in South Africa.
I want to stay because I know that I'm going to be able to contribute, for instance, to the Ministry of Education, and maybe one day when I grow the wings, I might want to be the president because I think I can steer a nation, whatever the case is. But currently, as a young person, what can I do? And that's where things get complicated because, for instance, if you're looking at, we're so, you know, we keep talking about the fourth industrial revolution. We're so behind in terms of like, you know, actually navigating the world space, the global economy. So maybe there are people that need to go to get the skills to come back, and then there are people that need to stay. What do I want to do? I'm thinking right now, I have an application sitting that's going to a university in London. Now, if I say I'm staying, you know, what's going to happen next year when I'm supposed to, you know, are they going to accept me? So I want to stay, but my staying is a staggered consideration. If my going outside to get a skill is going to help me come back, and I am going to come back either way because I don't think there's any space that can exist in meaningfully. I am going to come back. I have to come, so I have to leave for a reason, and I have to come back for the reason of building the nation. And if the people can go to China to learn how to code and to learn all of those things that those countries are doing, they should go in so much as we even sign whatever bilateral agreement saying as soon as they are done with their degrees, deport them. They are coming back. So
we need to be deliberate and
yes,
radical
very,
about that.
very deliberate about whatever means necessary to build our country, even if it means getting people to go, get degrees.
That's what China did.
That's what China did, right?
They deported
They
young
did-
people.
you know,
Come back when you're done.
No, but and
That's why China is where it is now.
where it is today.
And if we're not gonna do, guys.
my dream is for all marginalized people to have their voice heard and to feel as if they can make a difference in their lives and others.
My dream is to actually inspire every single person who identifies as African with Africa to help Africans call their souls their own, but also to do whatever is necessary for us to realize every dream that we decide for ourselves.
My dream is to see a better Africa that is better for the black child.
My dream is for South Africa and the world to become a place where wealth is available to everyone pretty much equally, and where we don't see the same kind of disparities between the lifestyles and access that different people have access to.